Today, we welcome our first guest onto the Coaches Y podcast. He is a state finalist in 2016, two-time state placer, three-time state qualifier, New Mexico national team member, Fargo qualifier, and an overall record throughout high school of 133 and 27. He is a first-year coach, and today we welcome Cody Manuelito to the podcast. If you guys do hear any sort of breakup within the audio, we apologize. We had some technical difficulties, but hope you guys enjoy the show. And we'll see you guys next time. With the world of coaching evolving and the carousel is always changing, we're going to sit down with some coaches and we're going to figure out why they coach, how they coach, what they coach, and most importantly, we're going to figure out why they chose this profession. My name is Casey Wilkinson, and I'm your host of the Coaches Y podcast. Welcome to the Coaches Y podcast. My name is Case Wilkinson, your host of this beautiful podcast, and today we have fellow coach Cody Manuelito. He is a four-time, Cody? Three-time placer?
I'm a two-time state placer.
Two-time state placer. And I'll have him break that down a little bit more and get a little bit more into that. But he's here today, and we're going to talk a little bit about him. So, Coach Cody, how are you doing today? Or tonight. I guess it's nighttime.
I'm doing pretty well.
That's good, man. That's good. So where are you coaching at right now?
Right now, I'm the assistant coach at Piedra Vista High School, located in Farmington, New Mexico.
Nice. Okay. So and I'm assuming you're a wrestling coach, correct? Based off of your history?
Yes, sir, I am.
Nice. Okay. How long have you been there at PV?
This is my first season here
Season.
at PV.
Okay. So, Cody, tell me a little bit about you. Where are you from? Where'd you grow up?
I'm from Kirtland, New Mexico. Which is 15 minutes from Piedra Vista High School.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So, but growing up, I played a lot of football, was in wrestling. I started wrestling since I was 6. Then I was in Kirtland's youth wrestling program from 6 to about 10, and from 11 and 12, I started going to Piedra Vista's youth wrestling program. So I saw different coaches, and I was able to get better. And during those 2 years, the coach that got me on was also part of the New Mexico Junior Wrestling Association, or New Mexico Junior Wrestling. So, which goes on during the high school season for the youth, and they have a state championship. So I was a part of that for 2 years, or no, I would say 1 year. I was part of that for 1 year. Within that 1 year, state champion through the youth wrestling program. Then after that, I had wrestled for PV's youth wrestling program.
So you said that you wrestled through both programs. I mean, do you think that was beneficial to you, both as you transition into high school and now that you're a coach? Do you feel like that was beneficial for you?
It definitely helped out quite a bit as well, because the Kirtland coaches weren't as technical as far as the PV coaches were. Not only that, it was just more repetition and getting in, just drilling and working different drills, not necessarily working the basics. They were going in depth with the basics as well.
Right. Yeah, I mean, obviously that's a huge thing, right? Is getting all the opportunity to drill and to continue your growth, right, as a youth wrestler. So you said you were a state champ in the youth. I mean, what was that experience like? If you remember it.
It felt pretty awesome. Wrestling through the youth program, got to go make trips to Albuquerque like every other weekend, and also qualified for the Greater Southwest Nationals, and I won that after winning the state championship. It's another tournament that's held in Albuquerque in the month of March. I won that one, So that was a pretty good tournament to win. Then from there, I got into freestyle and Greco through
So,
New Mexico.
I'm sorry, go ahead. I apologize.
Oh, so I got into freestyle and Greco, and we were making trips out to Albuquerque to wrestle with other freestyle and Greco coaches because there was quite a bit more coaches there that knew about freestyle and Greco, and there was only like one or two in Farmington. So we traveled out to Albuquerque to get better practices
Right.
with better coaches, and there were more kids that wanted to wrestle because Albuquerque is has has a huge population.
So, I mean, yeah, I mean, obviously that's huge. I mean, I'm sure that trip. How far is that trip? Was that trip for you? I'm assuming. I mean, I know where you live and where how far that is. So that's about a 2.5 hour trip. So, I'm sure. So that kind of goes to show your parents' dedication too.
Right? They were willing to pay whatever it costs to continue to help me grow as a wrestler, and not only that, learn off on and off the mat as far as what it takes to put in that work and what it takes to be dedicated and applying yourself.
Right. That sounds awesome, man. I mean, obviously, you don't see that a lot, and you see that a lot, but I feel like parents in today's world, um, and I know you mentioned you played other sports, so I'm sure you traveled. I don't know if you traveled as much for your other sports, but it's one of those things where I feel like in today's world, kids are starting to become specialized, if you would, really early. And I know that goes to help them in certain areas, but I also feel like it kind of takes away from them in other aspects, and just the idea of being a competitor in other aspects of life, outside of just specializing. So it was cool that you got to experience that. But what other sport did you play, or sports?
I played football, and also in that meantime during the summer, I would also do karate. So
Oh, nice. Okay.
that helped. Karate helped out with a lot of flexibility, being able to bend that other players or other wrestlers can't bend, or they don't have as much flexibility. But I'm pretty pretty satisfied with myself that I almost got my black belt in karate as well.
Oh, wow. That's pretty cool, man. So what's the belt? What's the belt before black belt?
It'd be a brown belt.
Oh, brown belt. Okay. I don't know that one. I don't know karate that well. um, so you wrestled in college, correct?
I did.
Yeah. Where'd you wrestle at? Tell me about that experience. I mean, obviously coming from a relatively small area, small town, and getting the opportunity to wrestle in college is very, very cool and very, very unique. I wrestled in college too. So it's almost like it's a blessing to come out of this state to go to the next level of any sport. But so I guess tell me about your experience both there and where you went, and a little bit about your time at the college you went to.
Right. So I went to Northwestern Kansas Technical College up in Goodland, Kansas, which would be 17 miles from the Colorado and Kansas border. It's along I-70 as well. That takes about a good 9 hours, give or take how fast you drive, but it takes a good 9 hours. Um, I've been back and forth like every other weekend, but the college wrestling experience was unique because every day our preseason, our coach had us run 5 miles before practice, and once we did our 5 miles and came back, it was just nothing but drilling and drilling and drilling, and it was just the basics that we drilled nothing but single legs, double legs, just the simple things you can think of just to drill it. Not
Right.
not thinking that some of those college wrestlers just focus on the basics. It's not focusing on like firemen's or nothing too fancy. It's
Nothing
just,
funky.
yeah, nothing funky. It's just completely simple. Not only that, I live probably about a good mile off away from campus. So the dorm room I stayed with was, I believe he was a Colorado state champ too. So
Oh
he
wow.
knew his way. So it's just the competition there was much better than I thought it was. Not only that, most of those guys in the room were saying that New Mexico wrestlers weren't that very good. And I ended up beating out 75% of the guys in the room, which is which kind of impressed me. I was like, well, you guys said that we weren't too good, but I showed you guys up. So
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's interesting. I we whenever I was in college, we actually ran. So you were a lightweight, so I believe you would have had to run the 5 miles too. But I wrestled heavyweight, so we had to run 3.5 miles instead of 5, and we'd do it 6 a.m. And we'd do it where I was at was in Alamosa, Colorado. So we'd be running in, you know, 5-10 degree weather. When it got close to season, it was -5, -10, and so we would do that in the morning. So it sounds like it was pretty similar, but our drilling was very, very similar too. We kept it simple. We didn't really do anything out of the ordinary. We did some funk stuff every once in a while, but it was really, that was more of just to uh, keep it fun. But yeah, I mean, we drilled very similarly, it sounds like. But yeah, I mean, it was interesting because, we, where I was at, Adams State, they actually recruit, and their pipeline is New Mexico. So they actually get a lot of kids from New Mexico to go there. So, it's pretty cool to see that, where you went, they thought they were weak, but in Adams State, they actually, still to this day, they're one of their big pipelines is New Mexico kids. Um, and a lot of New Mexico kids have been successful. Going to that school, but also just being, having that faith in having faith in New Mexico kids. So it sounds like we went to similar practices, but the kids there were two different people. Which, don't get me wrong, Kansas tournament. We went to a Garden City, Kansas tournament whenever I was in high school, and that tournament was tough. But back then, Piedra Vista was very, very good. And so we actually went there, and I think we took second to a Kansas team, but we took second out of, I think it was 45 teams. So we kind of showed Kansas that New Mexico team was good. So that's pretty cool that you got to go up there and show those kids what's up. So that's awesome, man. But so, was there ever a coach that made an impact on you, whether it be youth, middle school, high school, even collegiately? Was there ever a coach that, still to this day, you could think about that, made an impact on you?
uh, throughout the youth program, from the time being at Kirtland and both at PV, I would say there was one coach in particular that definitely helped out the most. His name was Boyd. Uh, he's got a long last name, Boyd Pauly. I'm not too sure. You may know him, but he's also another native as well. But he definitely helped out. Another one that worked with him was another guy named Ricky. He's also another native.
Yep, I know Ricky.
Those two definitely helped out the most. They made sure I was doing every little thing right. Not only that, I also got to know Levi Stout, which also runs Stout Wrestling Academy. And right after high school wrestling season, I would be in their wrestling room at their academy. They definitely helped me out as well with discounted membership. But it showed being a top wrestler out of this four corner region that we're in. They were willing to help out good wrestlers
For
to
sure.
continue to make them better. So those coaches definitely made a huge impact in my success as a wrestler as well.
Yeah. We actually share some pretty similar names. I mean, Ricky was around when I was in high school, and I don't know how involved he was. I don't really remember how involved he was, but yeah, I mean, he was really pretty cool with me, and he always helped out when he could. And yeah, you mentioned Stout. He was my coach, and he was probably one of the biggest influences in me in my life. And still to this day, we have a great relationship. And he's actually one of the first people to call and congratulate me on my head coaching job. So it's pretty cool. It was really cool that you got to experience some of the same coaches that I had, and we share some of the same people. So when did you decide that coaching is what you wanted to do? I mean, there's so many professions out there, so many things in the world that we could do, right? I know that you don't coach full time, but when did coaching be into your brain as like, oh, I want to do this, or I want to be a part of it?
Well, it's just the love of the sport. I love wrestling so much that I want to give back. I was so successful here, and all the coaches were invested in me, and I know so much with wrestling. I want to give back to the community and build this area stronger so that we have better wrestlers and top level wrestlers as well, and to continue to produce that out of this region of New Mexico.
Right. Yeah, and for the people who are listening who don't know about our area up here, um, historically, our county has produced well over I think it's like 60% or something, maybe a little bit more, of the individual state champions in New Mexico. So we're a very, very good area. But don't get me wrong. I mean, obviously the Metro and Albuquerque's good. There's some places in Santa Fe that's been had its time and dominant, and they've always been good. And some people from the South, and I mean, New Mexico wrestling has always been good, kind of anywhere you look. But yeah, the North has kind of had its fair share of success up here. So I definitely know what you mean by wanting to, continue to help the youth and continue to help this area, be successful in the sport. So, so how did you get into coaching? Obviously, I know there's different routes that people go, and people know people. Some people just apply. I mean, but how did you get into coaching?
Well, right after it was during high school season. Uh, some of the high school wrestlers, me and a couple other guys would right after right after high school season we would donate our time to the youth, and we would. I was helping out the youth ever since I was going into my sophomore, junior, and senior year. So I was helping out the youth 3 years out of my high school, and I just liked seeing the enjoyment, seeing the kids love it, seeing how much the kids like wrestling, and just seeing that excitement at the tournaments. Because it's also wrestling also gives you confidence as well, and seeing the kids how they're going from day one to the very last day that they're there, you can see a huge difference,
Oh,
and it's just the reason why I also like it as well. Just,
right. I
just the
mean,
feedback.
yeah, no, I mean that makes a lot of sense. Obviously, when it comes to the coaching world, the love of the sport is the reason why most coaches do it. I actually said in my very first episode that um, there's not a lot of money to be made in coaching unless you're a major guy. Really any coaching in high school or middle school sports. So you really got to do it for the love. So I mean, what do you love about coaching?
Uh, should I just love seeing the excitement out of the kids, seeing their confidence boost, seeing them. It almost feels like they're kind of almost a different person. They're able to stand taller at the end of the day or at the end of practices. You going through a hard workout, and then like 5 minutes whenever they're done, they don't feel tired, or they don't feel like it's gonna bring them down. So it's just like it also teaches you a part of life that in a way you don't think of it, but it's also there too. Like you could go through a hard practice, and you could still be standing. So, I mean, it's your dedication. And
All right. So tell me, what do you hate about coaching? I mean, is there anything that you dislike about being a coach?
uh, I wouldn't have any dislikes about it. I mean, there are some stuff like I'm kind of okay with, but there's not anything I dislike about it.
Well, that's fair. That means you really love it. Okay, good. That's good to hear. You know, as a coach and as a fellow coach, you know, it's hard to. There's definitely things that have its ups and downs, but it's pretty cool that you don't have anything you hate. So that's good, right? So what's your mindset as a coach? You know, or coaching mindset? What's your yeah? Let's keep it at that. What's your coaching mindset?
Now, as far as my coaching mindset,
Yeah. So when you walk into the room on a Tuesday or on a Friday or at a tournament, I mean, whenever you wake up and you know you have practice, what's your mindset as a coach?
get up and I'm excited for practice because I'm excited to see these guys, and I, it's a family that you build with them. It's it's not like it it's different from a job. It feels like because you're not there to make the money, but you're there for the kids,
Right.
and you get to see them. You get to see them through their best days. You get to see them at their highest and their lows, and you get to it's a journey. It's not about the destination. It's all about the journey.
Right. It's a marathon, not a sprint. So how do you coach mindset then? So I know in the sport of wrestling, right, we have it's a very hard sport, right? It's a very grindy sport. You know, 3 4 months in, you know, it's a 3 month 4 month season. You know, towards the end, kids start getting tired, and some kids wrestle year round. So it's a very it really can take a toll on your mindset, especially since it's such an individual sport. You start taking losses and losing a lot. It's easy to get down on yourself, right? Winning, right? You have to learn how to be humble in those type of situations. You can't go and start being cocky because once you take that one loss, you have to know how to win and lose, right? And there's obviously so much more to a mindset in the wrestling room, but how do you coach it? I mean, what's your philosophy on the mindset of the athlete, and then how do you coach that?
Well, as far as like running practices and what the mindset would be, just showing them the simple stuff, and whenever they get lost, to always try to have fun with it, because right when you're about to lose them, you got to think of something else to do, so then they don't get onto another object or thinking about something else, or you got to continuously have them working on different moves to where they can continue to think as well. And it may not always be ever about wrestling, or it's kind of just like keeping them moving and making sure that they know different positions or they can handle different things as well.
Right. Okay. Cody, to end this, I just wanted to see if you would be all right. I'm just gonna shoot you some quick questions, and then we'll get you out of here. Is that all right with you?
Uh, Sounds good with me.
Cool. So, how do you build a successful culture?
Well, it starts with the kids. Um, as far as like knowing what you want to do with the kids, it's and it's just building relationships with them. Not only that, it's also starting at the youth to work your way up to the high school as well. Because if you start at the youth and say you go from the youth to the middle school to the high school, if you're the same continuous coach there along the way, they're going to be continue to grow as a wrestler, and they're going to get used to how you coach and know what's going to be expected of them instead of having different coaches at different levels. Because you may start at the youth and they're going to show something different at the middle school, show something different at the high school. You can also lose kids as well.
Right. So how do you build a successful program? I know that kind of correlates with what you just said with starting at the youth and building that up and kind of getting them in that mindset and really, starting young to build the culture. Is that how you still build a successful program, or how do you build a successful program?
Well, that would be similar to building the culture as well. It it would be similar starting from the youth and going up to the high school and investing in coaches that'll also invest in your program and just having like a clear path to or having a path to success.
I like that. Fair. So do you have any tips for new coaches?
I would say, if some of the coaches don't understand the sport, you'd have to understand the sport first in order to figure out what's going on. Because then, if you don't understand it, you're gonna be yelling out random things, and it may not sound right, or it just depends on the way you coach as well too. Um,
Right, because you're a new coach, right? And so am I. So understanding what you want in your program's future and your culture, but also just in general, you have to know the sport. So I 100% agree with you there, and knowing the direction you want to go. So, for new coaches, as me being a new coach and you being a new coach, I appreciate what you just said. But I'll also say that in order for a new coach to find comfort and success and stuff, you have to have a really strong mindset. And there's a lot of things that go into coaching, right? Parents, programming, administration, a lot. So we have to just make sure that you have to be very strong to handle both wins and losses as a coach too, because a lot of I actually heard this one time. I actually heard this. Tell me what you think of this, but I actually heard one. There was this little quote that said, "Comparison is the thief of joy." And I thought that was such a powerful quote, because I 100% agree. If you compare yourself to area schools or other coaches or other programs, it's going to take away, just like you said earlier, enjoying the process, because you want to get there, obviously, right? You want to be successful, but you have to do it the right way and just continue to grow your program to where when you get to that point, right, you enjoy the journey. So actually, I really enjoy that quote, because if you compare yourself and you're not on that level or whatever, it can either cause problems with humbleness, but also just joy, right? Joy of the process can be taken away because you're comparing yourself. So what do you think of that quote?
I mean, that's a pretty strong quote, because if you start comparing yourselves and other your other wrestlers inside the room and all your other coaches can see the different comparisons, then you're gonna have arguments and you're gonna have tension in the room, and it's not a good thing to be around, because you want to have everybody on the same page. You don't want to have them have half the room wanting this, half the room wanting that. They all work towards a similar goal, but in the end, they all bring each other up as a team.
Right. I 100% agree. So here's the last question for you, sir. What is your why? Why do you coach, man? Why coaching? What is your why? What is your why as a coach?
My why is that I love wrestling so much that in I'm gonna die coaching. Honestly, I think I am, because there's so much to wrestling that I love. It's not just the winning or the losses. It's the relationships you build. It's the people, the continuous people you'll end up seeing, that'll end up you'll make friendships all over the state. You'll make friendships in other states, all over the world, because of wrestling. And wrestling brings a lot of people together, believe it or not. And everybody wants to help everybody out. So, you're gonna go to different states, They may have different camps. They may want to bring you up there. They might want to bring your program up there, at a discounted price or whatever. But it's that everybody wants to help everybody out.
Man, I appreciate you explaining your why and telling myself and everybody who's listening a little bit about you and diving a little bit deeper into who you are and everything. So, Coach, I want to say I appreciate your time. Thank you very much, and hopefully we'll get you on here again.
Yeah, well, I'd love to be on here again.
Sounds good, man. Well, I appreciate it. I hope you have a good night, and we'll definitely be talking soon. You have a good night, bud.
All right, you have a good night too.